Greetings YouTube, Sega Zombie here, and this week we're going to be taking a look at my Japanese Sega Saturn games. Now this is a VR video response to Gruss Newton's recent Japanese Sega Saturn collection. So let's get underway. First up we've got Winning Post 2 here. Can't say it's a game I've played. A lot of these I've picked up in the bundle when I got the Sega Saturn. And here we have a golf game. I'm sure it plays like any other golf game. Not my cup of tea. And then next up we've got Dragon Force. Now this is a big RPG on the Sega Saturn. Look at that box art, lovely. But unfortunately, not a lot you can do if you don't know Japanese on this version. And then next up we've got Virtual Cop. I do love the Virtual Cop series. I have these all PAL, but it's nice to have the Japanese releases also. I love the different variants. And Virtual Cop 2, one of my favourite games on the Sega Saturn. An awesome shooter, that one. And then next up we've got Sega Rally, another game that's in my top 10. An awesome conversion, and I can remember on the release of the Sega Saturn, that was the game to own. And then we've got Fighting Vipers. This is a 3D fighter that goes under the radar quite a bit compared to Virtual Fighter, but a solid fighter. Chaos Control, this is an on-rail shooter game, and it's bloody awful. It really is boring. And then next up we've got Panzer Dragoon. Look at that artwork. Awesome artwork here. These are all games I've kept in the Sega wall because they're just worth a few pounds. And here we have Panzer Dragoon 2. Zui or Zui. I can never pronounce that right. And that leads nicely into Panzer Dragoon RPG. Again, unless you can read Japanese, this is going to be very text heavy and pretty much unplayable, but nice to have on the shelf. And then we've got Bomberman on the Saturn. Now I don't know if this is the same as the PAL release or not. I believe there's a few versions of Bomberman in the Japanese library. And then next up there's loads of different fishing games on the Japanese Sega Saturn. Oh, he's looking angry, look at him. Yep, another one on the wall. Next up we've got Robo Pit. Now I do know I have this on PAL. It's like a cheesy looking robot 3D fighter. Nothing special there, guys. And then we've got Daytona USA. We all know Daytona, don't we? What a game, what a classic. Whoop, Sonic nearly went there. Then we've got Alone in the Dark 2. Again, this is what's come in a bundle. I've never played it. I should really sit and play the PAL release of this. Then we've got Virtual Fighter. We all know Virtual Fighter. And then we've got G-Bookers. Now this is one I don't know. Or G-Bookers. No idea. A robot looking owl there. Maybe I should give that a blast so we can see what that's all about. And then we've got Race Driving. Now we know what this is all about, definitely. I loved hard driving in the arcades when I was a young lad. What a great game that was. A great simulator. And then next up we've got Vampire Hunter, an awesome 2D fighter. One of the early 2D fighters released on the Saturn this. A great little game, but you're spoilt for choice with 2D fighters, as you're going to see. Next up we've got Gale Racer. This was also in the arcades. This conversion is slightly let down by dodgy controls and there's a few frame rate issues in it, but it plays solid enough. Next up we've got Darius Gaiden. Now this is where Japanese collecting can be good. You know, this game is hitting £50–60 at least on the PAL release, and I think I paid £15–20 for this one, so a third of the price. And next up another shooter here, The Game Paradise. Now this is a really solid, fun little game this, and a really good arcade blast. Check it out, guys. I'm sure I showed this in a recent video. Check it out. And then next up we've got Power Drift. What an arcade game this was. Overshadowed slightly at the time as there was a lot of races, but this is solid. This really is a great game, and it pushed arcade hardware to the limits. And the Saturn version is really good, but only available in Japanese. A great conversion. Next up we've got Astal. Now this is an interesting one. Officially released by Sega, but it never made it to the UK or Europe. a powerhouse of a 2D platformer, this. And I just don't think it made it here because obviously Sega in Europe were competing against the PlayStation and were just interested in 3D only titles. So games like this just got chucked by the wayside. Such a shame. A great game. And next up we've got Outrun. Now this is the definitive version to have on the Saturn, as the PAL release was released on the Sega Ages compilation. This one's more complete as it's got the different tracks layouts, and it's also 60 frames per second mode, which is absolutely stunning. And next up we've got Taito Chase HQ Plus. This also features the arcade conversion of Special Criminal Investigation. Now this is really solid. The only negative of the conversion is it's the Japanese audio. Next up we've got Metal Slug. What an SNK run and gun this is. A great game, no introduction, I'm sure you've all played it. And the Sega Saturn version is solid. A solid game and one worthy in my collection. This brings us on nicely to the big box ones now. These are all the box RAM releases. I do love these releases. I would love to have them all one day. And here we have Marvel Superhero, versus Street Fighter. And then next up we've got Real Bout Fatal Fury, another 2D classic on the Neo Geo, and a really good port. Next up we have Albert Odyssey. Don't really know much about these guys. As you know, I'm not really into my RPGs, but it's one that come in a bundle of games. Yeah, and it sits nicely on the shelf. Great artwork. And then that brings us on to Vampire Saviour. What a 2D fighter this is on the Sega Saturn. Wow. The large, massive sprites, the awesome animation. This game plays so well on the Sega Saturn. It's shocking. What a powerhouse of a game. Worthy in anyone's collection. And then that brings us on to X-Men vs Street Fighter. Again, another solid release in the series. Again, great box art there. And that is my Sega Saturn Japanese collection so far. There's still so many more titles I want to add to my collection, guys. So many shooters and Japanese exclusives. But hopefully, over time, I will add them to the Sega wall. I'm Sega Zombie. Until the next time, goodbye.